Welcome to the screencast for Assignment 3. This is Janelle, and I'll be going through each of the elements to help you get ready for the number operations interview. You'll see from the opening paragraph that children's development of number sense is very important in elementary school. Their fluency at multi-digit operations builds on their rich and deep sense of number. There are 4 purposes for this assignment in terms of your learning. The first purpose is for you to develop your own understanding of multi-digit operations. The second purpose is for you to develop an awareness of mathematical thinking so that you can notice your own thinking and you can notice the mathematical thinking of students in your classrooms. The third purpose is for you to explore many different ways of solving computational problems. This includes being able to use many different kinds of manipulatives, being able to make pictorial and symbolic records that match the use of different kinds of manipulatives, and developing many different kinds of strategies. Then it's important to make connections among all of those representations and strategies. With each of the assignments in our course, they are related directly to the course goals and objectives on our course outline. For this assignment, your learning is related to mathematical understanding, children's learning, planning and instructional strategies, and self-assessment as course goals and objectives. How do you go about learning towards this assignment? Well, that's what the assignment processes are all about. I've divided them into 2 broad categories: engaging in mathematical learning and engaging in pedagogic learning. I'll go through each of these. In relation to engaging in mathematical learning, you should be doing the following. You should be reading the textbook and the articles assigned in class for the class that they're assigned. You should be completing the computations that have been assigned in class and get them ready along with multiple solutions for the following class. You should be participating in class activities by exploring manipulatives. That means getting the manipulatives out on the tables and using them each class, developing pictorial and symbolic records of what you've done with the manipulatives, and moving towards mental strategies. You should be developing your own personal strategies and be able to explain why they make sense or are sensible. You should be in your table groups listening to colleagues' development of their personal strategies so you can notice and understand strategies other than the ones that you're familiar and comfortable with. And you should be making comparisons across these multiple strategies and representations. In relation to your learning for pedagogic purposes, there are 4 processes that you should be engaged in. The first one is developing familiarity with the program of studies, noticing students' trajectories as recorded in our program of studies in relation to number operations. You should be reading the textbook and assigned readings. You should be participating in conversations that are pedagogic in nature about the teaching and learning of multi-digit number operations. And you should be engaged in individual and personal learning around incorporating technology to support teaching processes. This means finding some video editing software that will support you in developing an instructional video around a number computation. With that broad background, there are several assignment products that you must produce. The core of this assignment will be a 20-minute interview where you'll come to my office and show me 2 different computations. One computation will be highlighted in the first half of the interview or in the first 10 minutes, and a second different computation will be highlighted in the second half or the second 10 minutes of the interview. The multi-digit operations that you will be performing will include 3-digit by 3-digit addition, 3-digit by 3-digit subtraction, 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication, or 3-digit by 1-digit division. And then I'll expect you to be able to talk about the kinds of learning that can happen and how our instructional processes can support mathematical learning. So now I'll go through each of those 2 halves of the interview. In the first half of the interview, you will come in and show me a teaching video for a multi-digit computation. That question will be randomly assigned to you in class, and you'll have time to practice that and put the video together. What I mean by teaching video is this is a video that you could perhaps show a class of students, or you could even show a parent so that they can come to understand how children are using different kinds of strategies to answer multi-digit computational questions. After you show me the video, I will ask you a few follow-up questions, both mathematically related and pedagogic related. Here's what you'll do to produce the video. You must start your video by modeling how to estimate a solution, so you must complete an estimation. Next in the video, you will use base 10 blocks to model a solution to the question. This must be a non-standard approach. You will also be recording a pictorial and symbolic representation of the strategy. It's up to you whether you make a pictorial and symbolic record during or after your use of the base 10 blocks, but you must have the base 10 block representation, the pictorial representation, and the symbolic representation for that question. I ask that you use a black Sharpie marker in your video when you make your records so that it shows up more clearly on the video. If you really want to use a different manipulative, you'll have to come and talk to me about that beforehand, but I strongly recommend that you use base 10 blocks because of the size of the values that you're working with. After you've completed that part of the video, you will also in the video have to model a different personal strategy, that means a non-standard approach, using a mental and symbolic approach. So most of it should be done in your head, but then you will be recording some things on paper symbolically to represent what you're thinking about in your head, and you can explain this verbally while you go through the question. So it says solve the question while thinking about the numbers and using paper and marker. What I mean by highlighting the word thinking is that I'd like you to be working with the values and a sense of number. So what does that number mean and how might you use that effectively? You might think about using place value language, but moving even beyond place value to think about what that number actually represents. These are all of the elements in the video that are required. The video should be approximately 5 minutes long. It can be shorter than that if you like, and it should be definitely less than 6 minutes long. If it is longer than 6 minutes, what that really demonstrates is a lack, perhaps, of understanding and or mastery of that question. So be very careful as you put this video together. And please be creative as you put it together. Get to know some video editing software and use that to your advantage. When you come to the interview, I would ask that you have it queued up and ready to play on a laptop or a tablet when you arrive, so that we don't waste our 20 minutes with technological issues. That's the first half of the interview. In the second half of the interview, I will give you a different question to complete, and it will be a different operation than what you had for your video. And I will ask you to demonstrate a personal strategy for that multi-digit computation. And then I'll ask you a few follow-up questions, both mathematical and pedagogical. For this part of the interview, you will first record your estimate for the question and talk about your estimate as you work through it. Then you will use a mental and symbolic approach to solve the equation. You may not use a standard North American algorithm, but it needs to be a non-standard algorithm. That's a personal strategy that you've made sense of. Again, a mental and symbolic approach means that you're doing some of the thinking in your head, you're talking about it aloud and recording symbolically what you're doing as you go about it. Again, think about the numbers and then use paper and pencil as a way to keep track where necessary. This should be a relatively efficient approach, and you should be trying to explain it as you solve it, as though you were talking to students. The more efficient your approach, the higher level of understanding you demonstrate to me in the interview. So as I've said before, after each part of the interview, you'll be asked some follow-up questions that lead toward pedagogic thinking. And then at the end of the interview, you will be asked to complete a self-evaluation. That's the third page attached to this assignment. At the end of the interview, you'll know what your mark is, and I'll hand back all of the assignment products the following week when all of the interviews are complete. So rather than a single due date for this assignment, the interviews will be occurring in 20-minute slots between November 17th and 21st inclusive. You will need to sign up for an interview time slot on our Moodle eClass site. I've developed a separate tab called Number Operation Interview Sign Up, and on November 8th at 10 o'clock in the morning, that sign up will go live and you'll be able to select a time that suits you. Please make sure that you're not missing other classes in your interview time slot, and if you have limited availability, make sure that you're signing up as close to 10 o'clock on November 8th as you can to get your first choices in. That sign up time will close on Saturday, November 15th at 10 a.m. So make sure within that 1 week time frame you have signed up for an interview. And there really isn't a lot of flexibility in moving interviews around, so please make sure that you check your schedule carefully before you select a time, and select one that is a time that you can show up. On the day of the interview, make sure that you arrive 10 minutes before your allotted time. Usually these interviews go on schedule, and so we don't want to hold up the people behind you, so just make sure that you arrive on time. If you do miss your time slot, then a 10% late mark will be deducted and we'll have to reschedule your assignment. When you've finished your video, I'd strongly recommend that you consider uploading your video to TeacherTube or to YouTube so that other people can take advantage of it. At the same time, you might want to look on YouTube, search for EDEL 316, and you should find some examples of students who have made videos in the past. The last page in our assignment document is the evaluation rubric. You'll see that this assignment is weighted at 20% of your course grade, and this rubric will be used in our interview together, and you will be ranking yourself in accordance with the rubric descriptors. What I will explain in our interview is I find that it's usually easiest to begin with the bottom bullets in each of the sections and then work our way up. So looking at your use of mathematical concepts, terms, and symbols, and how they're used effectively, and the accuracy of your computation. The second or middle bullet is related to your explanations, both your visual explanations through the concrete, the pictorial, and the symbolic, and then your oral explanations, and how fluently and with ease you produce those explanations. The top bullet is about the demonstration of your understanding, your insight, and your performance. This really relies heavily on your choice of strategies or approaches. Does it demonstrate a standard approach? Does it demonstrate use of only digits? Do you understand place value ideas? And then have you aimed high to think beyond place value and think about the numbers themselves and how you can perhaps decompose them and put them back together to complete your computations in a very efficient and fluent way. So I'll let you read through all of those descriptor words through the rubric that's out of 10. If you have any questions about the assignment, don't forget that we always have our Assignment 3 forum on our eClass site that you can post questions to and I will answer, or your colleagues can answer. As well, one final idea. When you're using the base 10 blocks, you might not have a set of your own at home, and we can't lend ours out from the classroom because of course we're using them on a daily basis. But the library does have on reserve about 16 or 18 sets of base 10 blocks that you can use and sign out on 2-hour library loans. I'd recommend that you take advantage of those reserve materials as you create your video. You're also allowed to just cut out paper-based 10 blocks and use those as well, but I strongly recommend that you use those blocks that are available in the library. Thanks and good luck with your assignment. I look forward to your videos.